One of my friends sent me these flowers to make a flower preservation resin art. She has carefully placed them in a small plastic container and handed them to me. She has even added some wet cotton wool to prevent the flowers from wilting. These flowers are so beautiful, aren't they? Let me show you how I preserved them. First, I added a small layer of silica gel beads into a clean, dry, airtight container. Then I carefully placed the flowers on top of the silica gel layer, facing downwards. I kept the most beautiful, perfectly bloomed flower facing upwards. Next, I added more silica gel to completely cover these flowers. Now I am going to add silica gel on top of the prettiest flower we have got. I let the silica gel beads go in between the petals to keep the flower open while drying. Next, I added some of the remaining flowers on top of it and covered with more silica gel. Do you know how long it takes to dry flowers using silica gel? Let's see. There were some more flowers remaining. I dried them inside an old book. Now let's see how they look after 3 weeks. They are completely dehydrated and a little bit fragile at the moment. Let me carefully take these flowers out of the silica gel. I'm going to pour the silica gel containing flowers into a large container. This way, it's easier to separate the flowers. Can you see they are still yellow in color? I was so happy that the colors are preserved. After pouring all the contents into the bigger container, I'm going to tap on it for a while. This helps the flowers to come to the top. Due to the moisture content in the flowers, some of the silica gel beads may have stuck to the petals. We need to remove such beads very carefully and also slowly. This flower lost some petals while I was removing the beads. Then I realized it's impractical to remove the beads using my bare hands, and I used the stalk of a dried flower to do that. This is how the flowers looked after being cleaned. Now they are perfectly ready for our resin art. I prepared a mixture of epoxy resin and poured it into the mold. Next, I added the most beautifully bloomed flower into the mold. I placed it in such a way that it faces upwards. Let me tell you why. We need to pour the rest of the epoxy resin mixture on top of this flower. It lets all the petals to get soaked in epoxy resin. Thereby, it prevents any air bubbles from getting trapped in between petals. Now I'm going to turn this flower upside down so that it faces upwards when we unmold this. I press the flower down and adjust it so that it lies in the center of the mold. Remember the cute little flowers that we dried? We are going to add them around this central flower. Once we have added enough flowers, we are going to let it dry. Around 4 to 6 hours later, we prepared another epoxy resin mixture. Poured it in the mold and we are going to add the rest of the flowers. Here I am adding the flower that lost some petals while we were removing the silica gel beads. I place it in one corner of the heart and add some little flowers and also the remaining large flowers. After we have added the flowers, we need to let this layer to be cured. I kept it aside overnight, and in the next morning I noticed one of the stalks of a large flower were coming out of the mold, and I cut it with this pair of scissors. We have some more space left in our mold and some more tiny little flowers remaining. So we pour another layer and add these flowers. Now let's see what happened to the flowers that we pressed inside an old book. Little flowers have dried very beautifully. I pressed another one large flower too. This one's petals are okay, but the large flower has turned a bit black in color due to the growth of a fungal mold. Obviously, we can't use it in our resin art. We'll discard it and use these nicely preserved petals. After all the other layers have dried, I prepared another mixture of epoxy resin. This is going to be the one before the last layer. I added 2 drops of white ink and a little bit of mica powder for making the background color a glittery white. I gave it a thorough mix and let it become a little bit tacky. Some of the flower stalks were sticking out. We are going to hide them with our dried petals. I'm going to replicate the structure of a flower with these petals. Then I added some tiny little flowers to make it look complete. After that, I let this layer to be dried. My friend asked me to add their special date in this creation. Therefore, I did it with some letter sequins. This is our final layer. I added some glitter in the empty spaces of the background, which I have forgotten to record. After finishing this work, I let it go. I was so afraid that I would leave fingerprints or scratch it with my nails while trying to unmold it. Therefore, I kept it in the mold for more than 2 days. Would you agree it if I tell you the hardest part was to unmold this? Now I'll stop here and let you enjoy the final product as it unmolds. It's pretty, isn't it? Let's take it outdoors and enjoy.